So thousands of parents and teachers from across the state gathered here in Albany today for the 11th Charter School Advocacy Day. Joining them were state leaders such as Lieutenant Governor Kathy Hochul and Senate Majority Leader Dean Skelos and Senator Jeff Klein, who is the head of the IDC. The rally held today was when education happens to be on the forefront. It's the most tumultuous issue in the governor's budget. It's also the subject of a budget hearing today, as you've heard. Joining me now to talk more about today's event are Kyle Rosenkrans. He is CEO of the Northeast Charter Schools Network, and also James Merriman is back. He is CEO of the New York City Charter School Center. Gentlemen, welcome back to Capitol tonight, both of you.
Always good to be here.
Okay, so Kyle, we'll start with you. This was planned to correspond with the budget hearing, or just so happened to be Advocacy Day, and here you are?
No, with our partners, the New York City Charter School Center, we've been doing this now, as you noted, for the 11 straight years, and it's typically around the earlier part of February, so it just happened to coincide with those hearings. But again, great success. Almost 2,000 parents, teachers, students were here in the Capitol from all over the state. And they were here, and they have a lot of issues they want to discuss with state leaders this year.
So two other things happened today that were kind of interesting and impact this situation. One is that, of course, we have a new Assembly Speaker, sure, Carl Heastie from the Bronx, and the Assembly Democrats. I noted, you know, Kathy Hochul was there, and Dean Skelos was there, and there was Jeff Klein there. Did you have anybody there from the Assembly?
We didn't, and I think it was because of the vote. Normally we usually have 8 to 10 members who come down and offer their thanks to the parents for choice and for charters. And just, you know, I wish I could say I forecasted this, but, you know, if I could forecast that, I'd be picking stocks, I guess.
You would, and you would be a very wealthy man. The reason why I bring this up, though, is because NYSET and UFT, the New York City Public Schools Teachers Union, and then subsequently the statewide parent, are back on the air with an ad pressuring the governor to put, you know, students ahead of politics, which is their message, if you will. And they have long been the allies of the Assembly Democrats. So now we have new leadership in the Assembly. So where do you stand with Carl Heastie?
Look, I think, and I will add, towards the end and after the vote, there definitely were Assembly Democrats who came in to speak to some of the parents.
Yeah, there are Assembly Democrats who are pro-charter.
That's absolutely true.
So,
and we appreciated that. But I think with new leadership in the Assembly, I think there's an opportunity to forge a new, more collaborative relationship with the charter sector, and we're optimistic, as we would be at the start of any new relationship, that we can accomplish that.
Yes, you'll have the honeymoon period, and then you'll start fighting. I mean, and I don't mean to be cynical about it, but don't you think that when you come in as a new leader, you have to demonstrate yourself to your members, and these members are very upset with the governor because of his sort of my way or the highway approach, which has nothing to do with you. I mean, do you think his antagonistic approach is going to be negative for you guys in the end? He says all or nothing, take it or leave it. That's not negotiation. That's, you know, a demand.
I think our relationship with the Assembly is the relationship that parents and schools have with their members. And that's a very personal relationship. They understand, they live in their districts, they understand the parents want choice. They understand, as Chancellor Freenia has said quite eloquently, schools are not getting it done in all instances, the public schools, and she wants to change that reality, and part of changing that reality, a lot of these members understand, is on the ground with charter schools. I'll also say the Bronx, we have a lot of Assembly support there. People have been living with decades of failure, and they don't want any more of that. So I think that's where we build the relationship from the membership, and I think, as Kyle said, with a new speaker comes new opportunities.
Yeah, but you don't want to get in the middle of what could be a protracted war between the executive and the legislative branches as they fight over a balance of power issue. I mean, we heard last night from Assemblywoman Glick, I mean, if you keep putting policy after policy after policy proposal in the budget, you're really taking away that post-budget negotiation period where you had policy discussions away from the numbers.
Look, the budget, the whole structure, right, a little above Kyle's and my pay grade, we'd say, but this is the trend. And it is what it is, and that's the world we live in, and governors have been doing this increasingly, and Governor Patterson did this, and I think this is the new reality. People are going to have to adjust for it. Hopefully we talk about the issues during this time, and I think if we do, we're going to prevail.
And I look at it like this. we have a problem in the state with failing schools across the state.
Which no one denies.
And if we're going to invest in more money into public education, that should come with improvements. We should be pushing policy improvements that will not just put more money into the same system that's struggling to meet the needs of families. We should actually be improving it as we're funding it. And so I think it makes a lot of sense to do this by way of the budget.
Yeah, and I'd say it's, what is so revolutionary about this idea? What is so crazy about this idea when the government funds of expecting results for that funding? I think that's the governor's basic position. Are there going to be disagreements about what you do, exactly how you do it, 30%, 40%, 50% of test scores? Yes, there are going to be legitimate debates about that. But the notion of saying the way we've done business, which is we give you money, you come up and tell us how much, and then we leave you alone, those days are over.
On the test score issue, though, it seems like other states, not New York, are moving away from the reliance or the such a heavy reliance on test scores when it comes to teacher performance evaluation. Do you support, in the charter school realm, the avenue down which the governor's going, which is at this point, instead of 60-40 with a 20% local negotiated split in that 40%, 50-50, so that would be observation testing?
Yeah, so I think Kyle and I would say this in unison. We don't have to because we don't have tenure.
Yes.
And if we don't have tenure, we don't get a mandated state evaluation system. If folks want to get rid of tenure, I imagine the governor would be willing to reconsider his evaluation position. But if you want to have both a strong tenure system and really no ability to actually get rid of teachers who don't belong in the profession after you've tried to help them, then you're going to get something centrally mandated. I think mandating quality from a central statute is tough, though.
And we're the most accountable public schools there are. If charter schools underperform, there is already an accountability system,
right.
And it does take into consideration performance on state tests. So there's no need at the charter level to mandate that on a teacher-by-teacher level. I
do want to ask you about, we were talking about funding earlier, and we haven't actually had this conversation yet on the show, but NYSET this week accuses charter schools of crying poor because you're keeping a lot more in reserves than the 4% that public schools are allowed to keep in reserves. And the response, my understanding is, from your side is, yeah, we have that much in reserves because we need to pay for like bricks and mortar that we're not getting from the state, and you're wanting from the state, which is what you've been advocating for in the budget. And I think, you're getting a $75 per pupil increase proposed by the governor.
Right. And
Go.
I think the issue is this year is really twofold on those funding questions. It's first facilities funding, and that's why I thank NYSET for putting out that report, because it actually called attention to the fact that because charter schools lack facilities funding, they have to sock away money for emergency repairs, for buildings. Even if you're co-located, schools are nervous about what their future holds or what if they may need to grow. So they need to put that money in reserve because we don't have facilities funding.
And we don't have taxing authority.
Right.
And we don't have access to the debt markets because school district debts are guaranteed by the state. Charter schools are not. Try telling that to a banker and getting him to open his pockets to you.
And on the per pupil funding increase, we think the governor's budget is headed in the right direction. It's a good first step. But when I look at the way we fund charter students on a per pupil basis, and I've talked to you about this before, statewide it's about 75 cents on the dollar they receive. If you go up to Buffalo, it's 60 cents. And what that means, up there, it's a disparity pushing over $9,000. So I think this is the year we can make a meaningful gap in that per pupil funding inequity. $75 is a step in the right direction, but I think I'm hearing from our members that we want to go further.
Yeah, and bottom line, that NYSET report, I mean, it's just apples, oranges. And charter schools have a different fiscal reality. Again, if they'd like to exchange our world for theirs, I got to tell you, I might want to do that, but I won't take all their rules.
I do. Of course not. I don't think they want them either. I do want to just ask you very quickly, the charter cap that the governor has said, let's raise it by 100, and then let's get rid of these regional sort of artificial limits, right, is what he says. Well, that would be good for you, right? I mean, you're closer to the New York City cap than the whole state is writ large.
Right, so we've got 25 left in the state. This would open up the about 180 that are left in the state. And then in addition, it would add back to the charter cap all the charters that had been revoked. We don't want to create a disincentive to closure of low-performing schools. Now, I don't think authorizers ever pulled their punches because they were going to lose a charter, but it is a bad incentive. So it's a good proposal. I think it gives everyone enough room to grow. We've had steady, sustained growth, and it's smart growth, too.
Okay, so unfortunately we're out of time, but we're going to talk more about charters, and you'll be back, and I say you, meeting sort of the charter community on March 4th for your lobby rally day, another one.
Yeah, it's a bigger education reform.
And there will be public school teachers here doing the same. What a shock. Dueling
We're
rallies.
all public school teachers.
Indeed.
We're all public school
Traditional
teachers.
public school teachers. Forgive me, you are. I always get tripped on that one. Thank you so much for being here, gentlemen. I do appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.